3 weeks ago, I made a video explaining why the Federal Reserve, for a fact, is going to cut the interest rates this September. And I told you that the unemployment rate is probably the most important indicator based on everything that we have seen that the Fed has been doing over the last 50 years, that it mostly relies on the unemployment rate in order to raise the interest rates or lower the interest rates. And just yesterday, the chairman of the Fed gave a whole 20-minute speech at Jackson Hole explaining, hinting that most likely that is going to happen, and he literally gave the exact same reasons that I gave you, but he told us a lot more. So here in this video, let me explain to you exactly what he said at Jackson Hole and why the probability of interest rate cuts this September have only increased. So if you're ready, give this video a thumbs up and let's get right into it. Now, according to J-Poll, inflation has moved much closer to our objective and the labor market had cooled from its formerly overheated state. Inflation was actually very high in 2022, and the path to 2.6% inflation rate has actually been very painful for the entire economy and pretty much everybody, because at this point everybody's like, we want lower interest rates. Yes, we haven't actually reached the target of 2% inflation rate. Just to give you a little hint, that's also a change in the policy of the Federal Reserve, but we will get into that. Anyways, the point is that inflation has cooled down and even unemployment is cooling down, which is cooling out the entire economy. Upside risks to inflation has diminished. So there is no longer a huge risk that inflation will go above 4% or 5% or to levels that we have seen back in 2022 and 2023. That risk is no longer there in the economy. But the unemployment rate had increased by almost a full percentage point, a development that historically has not occurred outside the recession. So when you have a single full percentage drop in unemployment rate, that's a clear sign the economy is in a recession. However, if you pull out the data, we are not yet in a recession. However, all the data indicates, including a full percentage drop in unemployment rate, that a recession is probably going to happen in the foreseeable future unless we change the policy. So the Fed confirms that the probability of a recession is only rising. At the same time, GDP growth has slowed down notably in the first half of this year to a pace of 1.2%, roughly half of the 2.5% pace in 2024. Now, last year, even though that wasn't the real GDP, but the overall GDP has increased by 2.5%, this year, the slowdown is very clear for multiple reasons. There was already one negative GDP quarter growth this year. Of course, we didn't have two consecutive negative GDP growth. That would be characterized as a recession, but the slowdown in the GDP is very clear. If the trend continues, again, a recession is imminent. The decline in growth has largely reflected the slowdown in the consumer spending. Despite all of that printing money in the last couple of years, there is a very clear slowdown in spending. The velocity of money is very slow. Yes, there is so much money in the economy, but the rate at the rate that money is being circulating in the economy has dropped significantly low, which is one of the reasons that we are not having very high inflation. The Fed have also talked about the tariffs, that the effect of tariffs on consumer prices are now clearly visible. You can see that prices are rising, and the fundamental reason behind it are the tariffs that have been put in place since April of this year. Now, it will take time for all these tariffs to have full impact on the entire economy, because at certain times or at certain periods of the entire supply chain, some of these businesses are swallowing these tariffs. So for example, if you're bringing something from China, maybe in the beginning of that stage, that factory in China is going to swallow part of that cost. Then maybe part of that cost will be moved and shifted to the distributor who's going to buy that thing from China and bring it to the United States. And then there is multiple people within that supply chain that will carry that cost. Yes, we can already see an increase in price in the final prices within the consumers, but that price increase will have to adjust through the entire supply chain. So the final increase in prices because of the tariffs is going to be much higher than they are right now, but the Fed will most likely wants to avoid a scenario where prices will continue keep rising, and that will turn into a persistent inflation instead of one-time increase in prices. The biggest risk that the Fed sees is that higher prices could lead to workers demanding higher wages, and that could turn to higher prices, and it might turn into a never-ending cycle. So imagine you're making like, I don't know, $50,000, and suddenly prices have increased so much that your $50,000 is no longer enough to pay for all of your bills. You're gonna go to your boss and say, listen, boss, I understand everything, but prices have increased. I gotta pay more in mortgage, I gotta pay more in rent, I gotta pay more for the basic necessities, so I want a raise or I'm quitting and I will go and find another job. Your boss is like, all right, fine, here is an increase of $5,000 or $10,000. And then suddenly your boss is like, I gotta increase my prices because I have just increased the wages. So it increases the prices. Those prices will again lead to higher prices in the market, which again will force people to go and demand for higher wages. The Federal Reserve wants to avoid that, but still it can see a risk of that happening in the foreseeable future. Another thing that the Fed actually paid a lot of attention to is that many here will recall the sluggish growth and painful slow recovery of that era. It's talking about the 2008 financial crisis. Now, I told you multiple times that I see a lot of people don't realize the importance and the profound impact of the 2008 financial crisis on the entire US economy. You can literally just take the United States and even the Federal Reserve itself and literally just cut it in half. Pre-2008 and after 2008. The fundamental way how the Fed works has primarily changed since 2008 because the crisis was so big that it literally took years and so much effort to let the economy grow again. It was in such a state that it seemed like the GDP will continue shrinking, and that's why the Fed started quantitative easing, something that honestly I never thought is actually even possible. It appeared highly likely that if the economy experienced even a mild downturn, our policy rate would be back at the ELB very quickly, probably for another extended period. So the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates to 0%. That's not happening. That's not helping the economy. It starts buying all of the securities in the market to push the economy to grow. And the Fed was worried. We're having literally 0% interest rate and the economy is not growing. And that actually lasted for like 7 years. Imagine having for so many years super low interest rates, and yet the economy is not growing. And yet we are seeing very slow growth. And that didn't happen for a year or 2 or 3. It literally happened like for almost a decade, if not more than that. And that's why at the end of 2021, they thought that inflation would subside fairly quickly without a sharp tightening in our policy stand. We lowered interest rates to 0% in 2020 because they have been 0% since 2009 and they didn't cause inflation. So the Fed was very confident that it's not going to cause massive inflation. It didn't cause massive inflation for 7 years when the rates were 0%. And we have increased only the rates to about 3%. Yes, we got them to 0% again to prevent such a crash again. So the Federal Reserve was actually surprised that 2 years of 0% interest rate caused such inflation when 7 years of 0% inflation rate didn't cause that inflation in the first place. And it wasn't just 0% inflation rate after the 2008. It was also massive quantitative easing in the market. We cannot say for a fact where rates will settle over the long run, but their natural level may now be higher than during the 2010s, reflecting changes in productivity, demographics, fiscal policy, and other factors that affect the balance between savings and investment. So the Federal Reserve is telling us that the era of 0% interest rate is over. At least in the foreseeable future, that's not happening. If you look at the effective interest rates, you will see that there was only one period in the history of the Federal Reserve where interest rates were 0%. This is it. You can see the era over here. Now, prior to 2009, yes, there were low interest rates, but the lowest we could see them was about 1.5%. If you even take this out, you can see that the average interest rate was about 5%, 6%, 8%. And then this was the longest period in the history of the Federal Reserve that we had the interest rates from about 2009 to 2016 or 2017 probably 0% interest rate. And the second and this period didn't cause any kind of inflation. The economy wasn't growing that much at all during this period. And then they lowered them again to 0% in 2020 and 2021. And because now it actually caused real inflation, the inflation that probably the highest inflation in 40 years, the Fed is telling us, listen, the data suggests that from now onwards, this 0% inflation rate is not happening. So even if we are going to start the journey of cutting interest rates, we might cut them to 3%, 2.5%, 2%, maybe best case scenario 1.5%. But this kind of low interest rates is no longer happening. So get used to the new reality. Now, the final fact is that, or the most important thing, why do we know that he's going to cut the interest rates, is that we return to a framework of flexible inflation targeting. So it's basically saying that until recently, we had a very clear goal, a 2% inflation rate. That is basically the target. Unless we reach that target, we're not going to do anything. But now they're saying is that we're going to change our policy. It's no longer going to be a 2% strict. Yes, over the long run, we want to see inflation at 2%. But in the short run, we are going to be very flexible. So we have inflation of 2.6%. It's fine. I mean, it's not literally a big deal. As long as we take the long time framework and it's about 2%, it's fine. So in the short run, in order for us to balance between our dual mandate, which is maximum employment and stable inflation, we might actually cut interest rates. Yes, inflation will be about 2.6, 2.7%. Maybe next year it's not going to be even 2%. It might be 2.4%. But we will lower interest rates in order to ensure that the economy has maximum employment and there is not going to be a recession. In fact, maybe by the end of the year, we might see a full 1% drop in interest rates by December of this year in order to avoid a possible recession. The most important question that you should be asking is that which stocks that you should be focusing when we are going to have lower interest rates. Now, the first most important simple thing that lower interest rates will do is that the cost of borrowing money will become much more cheaper. So naturally, if you have companies that are investing in new projects, so imagine you open this factory and based on your analysis that you have made, this factory is going to generate 8% return. So you're going to borrow the money and you will build this factory. If interest rates are 5% or 6%, and you borrow that money at 6% and you make 8%, now your profit margin is 2% in this case. But if we lower interest rates to 3% and you're making 8%, your profit margin has increased from 2% to 5%. You're making more money. When we are investing in any business, a lot of people like to look at the technology, which is extremely important to know the product behind the investment that you have made. But as an investor, the number one factor you look at is the cash flow, how much cash the business is making. That is the most important thing that you should be paying attention to. And when you take a company, you have to pay attention at the future cash flow, not at the past cash flow. Take, for example, General Motors or General Electric. It has been around for over 100 years. It made billions of dollars over the course that it has been around, maybe even more than $1 trillion. You got to check the numbers. Now, it made $1 trillion in the past. Will that help me if I buy General Electric stocks today? Of course not. What I care if I'm buying the stock now, how much the company is going to make in the future. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is that how the changes in interest rates are going to impact the future cash flow that these businesses are going to make. And based on that, we can value stocks in the market because behind every stock, there is a real company with real cash flow. Another important economic factor that you have to understand when analyzing businesses and stocks is that $1 today worth a lot more than $1 tomorrow. That is the basic investing concept that you always have to keep in mind no matter what you're analyzing. Think about it this way. First of all, let me ask you this question. What is more valuable? If I'm going to give you $1 million today or $1 million 20 years from now? Of course, $1 million today. For two reasons. First of all, $1 million today worth more because you can buy more things with it. 20 years from now, $1 million is still $1 million, but it can buy a lot less things. Just like $1 million could buy you a lot more things 20 years ago, you could literally buy a huge mansion for $1 million, probably anywhere in California. Today with $1 million, you can buy barely anything. Now, second thing is that you can take that $1 million and you can invest it, and that money will be multiplied multiple times. But if you receive that $1 million 20 years from now, you miss the opportunity to multiply it multiple times. So that is the mentality that you should keep in mind when you're investing. So the question is that what is going to happen to future cash flow in the market right now when interest rates are being dropped? First of all, when you lower interest rates, risk-free investments, they will see their yields go down. So we are talking about T-bills, we are talking about mortgage-backed securities. It increases the opportunity cost of the investments on businesses that will make a lot more cash flow in the future and are making less money today. So for example, take two kind of businesses, ExxonMobil and Tesla. Both of them are energy companies. ExxonMobil has already been through its prime and it's making a lot of money today, but it is not necessarily going to make a lot of money in the future because it's not focused on the future. While Tesla is not making a lot of money today, but because it's making huge investments in technologies that will make a lot more money sometime in the future. So the future cash flow of Tesla is a lot more than the future cash flow of ExxonMobil. So we have lowered interest rates. It is going to increase the value of the opportunity cost of the future cash flow. So when we lower interest rates, suddenly you see that technology companies dramatically rise in value. Their stock prices increase because suddenly, based on the current investments, the future cash flow of these businesses suddenly looks much more attractive, much better investments. That is the basic logic. We lower down interest rates, it lowers the discounted rate, and it makes their future cash flow much more valuable. So in an environment where we start lowering interest rates, suddenly you see those kind of stocks rise in value because these are the kind of businesses that are potentially going to make a lot more money sometime in the future. Currently, the best stocks that are possibly going to make a lot more cash flow in the future are the AI companies or technology companies. Now, it doesn't mean that every single tech company or every single AI company is going to make that much money. Their stocks might actually rise in value, but it doesn't mean that they were that much. That's why you still have to do more analysis. So from now onwards, probably the focus is going to be on those kind of stocks. These are the kind of stocks that will see their stock prices rise. And because most of the S&P 500 and most of the stock market today consists of technology companies, you will see their stocks actually rise dramatically in value. But in an environment where interest rates are high, it is far better to invest in risk-free investments because they provide you a much higher yield. And that's one of the primary reasons, for example, why Warren Buffett over the last 3 years, instead of investing in the stock market, he actually been investing in treasury bills of the United States. I mean, why would you invest in technology companies when these treasury bills are providing you with 5.5% in interest rates? And that's why he literally, like 60% of his entire portfolio has been invested in them. But now, because interest rates are going to go down, it's investing in treasury bills becomes less attractive, and investing in businesses with potential much higher future cash flow becomes much more appealing and much more attractive. That's it for today, guys. Don't forget to check the links in the description of this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.